Hey guys, Bobby Hughes here with Pride Custom Firearms and homesteading, and today I'm starting on my aquaponics greenhouse. So I wanted to show you guys the process. So this is kind of a do-it-yourself how-to, and then also the homestead video too. So this will be a series of videos. This evening we're going to be working on the foundation. So I'm going to go over how to use transit. And then we'll go over some leveling stuff and basically just the basics on the foundation. So let's get started. Alright guys, so the greenhouse that I'm going to be building, it's just going to be standard stick frame construction. Nothing super fancy about it. And so for the foundation, the thing is here is where I'm in the city, there's a lot of ordinances and codes on building structures and things like that. So basically, as long as I don't put any concrete or block material down, then this is not a permanent structure. It's just a temporary structure or a semi-perm. But regardless, it's not a permanent structure. So we're not digging footers, and we're not going to be putting in like concrete posts or anything like that. So it's just basically going to sit. It's a building that's going to sit on top of these. So these are railroad timbers. I picked them up at my local co-op. I recommend trying to find them on maybe Craigslist or something like that. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any locally without driving out like an hour to get them off Craigslist. And on Craigslist, the cheapest I could find was $6 a piece. My local co-op had these for $7.99 a piece, so a couple bucks more, but I only needed 6 of them. The greenhouse is going to be about 10 foot by 14 foot, so it's not huge, but it'll work for my aquaponics setup that I'm going to be building. So anyway, basically what you need to do to get started is lay out where you want your greenhouse to be. So you want to start on as level a piece of ground as you can possibly have. So I wanted to put it down there more because I'm south facing this direction, and I've got these trees in my neighbor's yard. So the further back that we would go, the more southern exposure I would have. So I wanted to go down the hill more, but I figured that I'd have less usable space with the yard as the grade slope down there. So this is the most level spot that I found. So once you find the spot that you want to use, lay out. You don't have to have the timbers yet. You can take wood stakes and lay it out, measure your width and your length and all that, and then you will measure across. So you'll measure from this corner to that corner and get the measurement, and then do the opposite. So you would come down here and measure from this corner to that corner and see if it matches. If it doesn't match, then you're not square. So, and if you want to know how to find what it should be already, then you have to have your measurement, your length, and your width. And so you'll go and use a calculator and figure a hypotenuse formula, and that will give you, if you have the length and the width, it'll give you the hypotenuse, which is across there. So that's how you figure out if it's square or not, without having something to square it like a factory squared sheet of plywood or something like that. So that's how you find square. Once you find square and you have your stakes laid out, then in my case what I did was I laid the railroad ties out just to get an idea of how big it would be and all that good stuff. So I started with a square frame. Now what I've done is got that all squared up. Now the next step is you need to find, if you're going to use, regardless of how you're going to do it, there's going to be 2 ways that you're going to level this foundation up. Alright, so I'm using a cut method to level the grade, to level my foundation. So basically what that means is my foundation will be level, for my building to be level, but inside my grade will still have a slight slope on it. But there's also a fill. So you can fill grade, which means you would start wherever the high spot is and then fill in on the low spot and set your timbers on top of there. So that would level out your foundation. But I'm going to do the cut method instead of the fill method. So you get your layout done, you get it square, and then you determine whether you're going to do a cut or fill. So in my case, I'm doing a cut. And so now the next step with a cut is I want to find the lowest place on the lowest point on the grade. So let's back up here. And you can see that the lowest place, the lowest part of the grade is going to be that corner right there. So that is my reference point from that corner. So everything else is lower than that corner, or higher than that corner right there. So that corner is my starting point, and then everything else will be cut down to level everything to the same part as that corner right there. So how do we achieve that? There's different ways that you can do it. You can use a standard level and pick your starting point and then box level all the way around and just keep digging and moving and digging and moving and digging and moving. You can use a line level, and you can set stakes. So you would set a stake here and then a stake out there and then tie a string across it. Once the string is good and level, then you measure down. You could basically just imagine that this was the top of the string. You could just measure down from the string to the ground and see how many inches it was at your reference point, and then go down to the other end, because your string is going to be level now, and measure down to the ground and then subtract the difference, and that'll tell you how many inches down you need to go. In my case, I have a transit. So if you've never used the transit before, it's pretty simple. Grab that story stick. So I'm going to show you guys how to use a transit. It's very simple. Go down there. So what you want to do is, we know that that's the lowest part, and the way that we can accomplish or find that out is we take the story stick to the corner, all four corners, and we start at what we think is the lowest corner. So Anthony's starting at what we think is the lowest corner. Put it on the ground in the cutout. All right, so he's got that. We've already cut part of that, but imagine that wasn't already cut out. Imagine that it was just regular grass. So we stick it on what we think is the lowest part, and then we come up here to the seeing glass. I'm going to try to shoot through this, but I don't know if it's going to work or not. Yeah, it's going to be hard to see because of the glare. So anyway, we look through the spotting scope at the story stick, and let me find it. All right, so the story stick at this point says that we are at 7 foot 9.5 inches. Okay, so now go back to the back corner. So that's going to be our reference point. It's going to be 7 foot 9.5 inches. That's our reference point. That's the lowest part of the grade. So now we look back through the spotting scope again find the story stick, and it says that we are at 7 foot 11 inches. So that's 1.5 inches difference. So that means that the grade back there is now actually lower than the front. And the reason why it wasn't originally, it was 1 inch higher back there, but it's because we cut out more back there than we did in the front, and that was because of a root. So, and if you want to see if it's level all the way down, then you would just go about every foot with the story stick and just read your grade, and it'll show your high spots and low spots and all that stuff. For this kind of construction, it's not really detrimental that you get it perfect. We want to be within about 1/2 inch, so that way it doesn't throw the pitch of our roof off, it doesn't look shoddy, and it looks like a decently constructed building. So anyway, that's the basics on how to just get it leveled out, okay? So we're going to get to work and work for a little while on getting this thing leveled out. Once you get your first row level, you want to start with one row, so have a starting point. We're going to start with this here, get it level, and then we will roll this front one out here, just roll it out one and roll the back one back, and then we'll work on the upper level. And then all you have to do is come in here and make the front and the back one match the low side and the high side. So you just keep digging it out until you get it good and level, make them match. So anyway, we're going to get to work and work for a little while, and I'll bring you back on once we get some more done. Alright guys, so we got the other side set, and I didn't really show the process. So it's starting to get dark on us, and this just shows on the other side it's actually just below ground level. All we did was cut the sod and put a layer of gravel in and then set it on it, because we knew that was our low side. So there's very little dirt that was removed on that side. But to get this side the same level as that side, you see we had to dig it almost all the way out. So it's almost completely buried now. And this is a good reason, or a good time, to talk about these timbers a little bit. The cool thing about using railroad ties is they'll probably never rot in your lifetime. They're creosote. They're dipped in creosote, so they're soaked in it, absorbed in it. That's why it always stinks on a railroad track, is because it's that creosote that's actually baking in the sun out there on the railroad tracks and stuff. So that's what causes them to stink. They actually the reason why, I mean, these are not rotted at all. The reason why they change them out is because of just all the weight, excessive weight on it. And I'm not a railroad person, but I'm just using a little bit of logic here. The excessive weight on it will kind of just crush them and bust them and stuff like that. Not that they rot out, just that they wear out. So that's how we get them and reuse them. So burying it is fine. It's probably never going to rot. I mean, it would take forever. It'll take a long time for it to rot out. So it's still good and solid, and I'm not worried about that. It'll outlast the time that I'm going to be here in this house. So that's fine for me. So the process of installing them, once we get our hole dug and we know that it's level, what you can do is, before you set the post in there, if you know kind of where you need to be with the depth, you can take your transit or your level and just lay it across the dirt, and it'll tell you how level you are on your dirt before you actually set your post in. And before you put your tie in or your footer in, you want to put a layer of gravel underneath it. And what that does is, any moisture that runs down through or down around it or anything like that, it allows it to drain away from it. Alright, if you just put it directly down in the dirt, that dirt just holds all that moisture, and the wood just holds the moisture as well. So yeah, it'll get moisture on the sides, and if you wanted to combat it even more, you could surround the whole thing with gravel and then just cover it over with a little bit of dirt, and you'd be even better. But in this case, I'm not worried about that. So we just put a layer of gravel in the bottom, and that allows any moisture that comes in to just fall through. So this one, we've already checked it with our transit. It's good and level. It's the same. It's a 1/4 inch off from here to there. 1/4 inch is way within okay with me for a greenhouse. You know, if it was a house, it'd be one thing, but for a greenhouse or an outdoor shed, it's well within okayness. So especially for something that's not going to have a solid floor in it. So this is good with me. So our next step is we want to use some rebar stakes. On the ones that are buried like this, it's not necessary really to do it. But what I want to prevent is, I want to prevent my footers from shifting when I start packing the dirt back in around them. I want to keep them exactly 100, in this case mine, 120 inches apart. So I want to keep that 120 inches from the outside to outside. So what I'll do now is, I know that this side over here is good and straight. I'll drill a hole through this, start me a rebar stake in it, and then pull my tape across, make sure it's good and perfect, and then I'll pound it on home. And if you think for a second, go grab that pry bar. If you think for a second that this piece of rebar is not going to hold enough to hold it to the ground, I've got news for you. We actually installed the other row over here, and once we pounded before we pounded the stakes in, it was perfect. And after we pounded the stakes in, we realized that the back corner dropped about 1/2 inch, and I needed to pry it up and put some more fill under it, some gravel under it to kind of level it back up. We dug too much out basically. And so we laid a board down on the ground and put this pry bar under it and tried to pry it up with this pry bar. And what I did was I put the board down and I shoved the pry bar under it and put the board down, put the pressure on it, and I stood on the end of it, and I actually bent my pry bar. This is a solid wrecking bar, and I just bent it. So anyway, they're in there. Those rebar stakes will hold it plenty for a temporary foundation like this. So anyway, we're going to drill some holes and drive some stakes. Alright guys, so I just want to show you how to use a level in place of a transit. Some of you may not have the means to purchase a transit or the ability to use one, or you might not have help. Certain transits like mine, my transit requires a second person. One to hold the story stick, which is the stick with all the measurements on it, and then one to stand behind the transit and actually shoot the measurement. So if you don't have that, if you don't have two people or you don't have a transit, typically you can rent one from a rental company if you want to do that. But if not, then you can always use a level. Now, different levels, different length levels, all kinds of different levels out there. This is a standard box level. This is a 78-inch level. So this level right here is a pretty expensive one. This level will run you almost $100, depending on where you're at. But you don't even need this. I mean, this is a nice one. I have nice tools because I do this for a living, and I have to have good quality tools for that. But a level, for the most part, is a level. I mean, some levels are cheaper than others, and some levels aren't going to hold up as well. One thing I will recommend is stay away from plastic levels. The plastic ones tend to warp or break, and they won't hold true. The aluminum ones like this will always hold true, unless you run over it with a truck or something, and they hold up nice. And you can buy a smaller version of this, like a 48-inch level or something like that, and that would be fine for this as well. But normally, the longer the span, of whatever you're leveling, the longer the level, the more accurate it is, right? So anyway, I just wanted to show you that even without a transit, you could use a level. Once you get your first run, now the problem with using a level is you're not going to know the difference in your grade, the lay of your property without a transit. I mean, there are some tricks out there that you can do, and I could sit here and talk about that forever, but you know, you can use some certain grade readers and things like that. But ideally, the best thing to do is, if you don't have a transit, use a string level, which will just be a piece of string, and they make a little level that hooks on the string, and you can drive a stake in on your front corner and on a low corner, and hook a string to it and level it up, and kind of see the grade difference, you know, because you'll have a level line. You might be 4 inches off the ground on this end, but out here you might be 6 or 8 inches off the ground on your stake to have a level line. And that shows you how steep your grade is. You know, you've got a 4-inch drop. For instance, if it's 4 inches on one corner and 8 inches on the other, you know you've got a 4-inch drop across your grade. With a box level, once you get kind of your grade, you can start kind of chiseling out your sod or whatever, and set your first row in, get a good level, and then you can pull off of that level with a box level, and kind of get a better idea of how level you are. Now, in this construction, a transit is going to get you a more accurate reading all the way around. I know that all 4 corners are the same height. You know, I know the centers are the same height. I can do all that with a transit, whereas with a level, I'm just kind of guessing, you know, where we're at. And another thing with a level, right now, if you look at this, I don't know if you'll be able to see it in the video, but to read a level, there's a bubble in some neon liquid, and it's got 2 little lines on it. Ideally, you want that bubble right between those 2 lines, and that's going to make it perfectly level for you, right? But using these old scrappy railroad ties, it just kind of depends on where I set it as to what my bubble does. But for construction like this, as long as that bubble is between the lines, it doesn't have to be perfectly centered on the lines, but as long as it's between the lines, you're good enough for something like this. So just wanted to show you a box level and kind of explain how it works, and tell you that you can do it without a transit. It'll just take you a little bit longer. It won't quite be as accurate, but it's a little rudimentary, but it works. So anyway, you can use a level. Alright guys, so that pretty much sums up the installation of our footers for our greenhouse. It's not a hard process as far as complication goes or skill level. It is a lot of hard work, especially when using railroad ties and when you're doing a cut installation such as this. It's a lot of digging, a lot of manual labor. If manual labor is not your thing, or you're disabled and can't do that kind of stuff, then maybe the feel method would be better for you, and we discussed that earlier as far as leveling out your footers. But anyway, I'm happy with this. It's a good solid footer. It took me one evening we went and picked up the railroad ties and brought them home, kind of laid out and squared up the area, and then we took a chainsaw and used the chainsaw to cut them down. The second evening, I spent a couple hours setting the first row, and then we dug out for this section here and started digging this one. So we did that in a second evening, and then this evening, which is the third evening, I dug the rest of this one and installed it, and then dug that one and the back one back there and installed those. So like I said, once you get that first level square baseline, after that it goes pretty smooth other than the digging part. So anyway, like I said, I'm happy with it. I'm ready to start building. One thing that I think I'm going to do on the inside here to keep the grass from growing inside my greenhouse is I will probably try to scrape the sod off the top, and then I'm going to lay like a fabric barrier down, something that will allow moisture to pass through but won't let weeds grow through or grass grow through, and then I'm going to put a layer of gravel on top of it to give me a nice workable surface on the ground level on the inside, and that will allow water spillage and things like that to drain out and not puddle up and get muddy inside of the greenhouse. So you know, I can do that at any time. Obviously it would be easier now, but I'm ready to start building the walls. So tomorrow is Saturday. I'm not working tomorrow. The wife has something planned for me tomorrow as a surprise or something, but I'm going to try to work around the surprise and try to get some walls put up. So we'll do a video on that for sure, and we'll just keep trucking on it. So anyway guys, until the next video, get out there, shoot some guns, be safe, and most importantly, have fun. Don't forget to rate and subscribe, and also if you want to follow this project, then subscribe. I don't know where I was going with that, but anyway, subscribe. I love the subscriptions, and I'm getting close to 10,000 now. It's been pretty slow here the past year or so with my transition out of the military, but I'm going to start doing videos more often. So if you're interested in this kind of stuff, backpacking, backcountry camping, prepping, gardening, guns, anything to do with that kind of stuff, homesteading, then go ahead and subscribe. So anyway guys, until next time, get out there, shoot some guns, be safe, and most importantly, have fun. See you guys later.